You're listening to a Brawl Network production. This is a podcast for the best fans in the NFL.
Are you in the Mafia?
Am I in the what?
It's time for a Bills Brawl podcast.
Second down and 7. Kelly with the time. Touchdown! Bill Brooks.
Allen. Deep shot. Touchdown! On the line to Stephon Diggs.
And Thurman breaking tackles at the 22. Inside the 10. Touchdown Buffalo.
And it is another edition of the Bills Brawl. I'm Mike Lindsley. You can hit me on Twitter at Mike L Sports. Don't forget about my other podcast called the ML Sports Platter, all brought to you by Stanley Law Offices and Bryant and Stratton College of Syracuse. A lot of crossover episodes between the two. And you can find me all over Instagram and Facebook on ML Sports Platter as well. Let's recap a very ugly game in Jacksonville. Let's start first with the fact that under no circumstances, if you are a contender for the Super Bowl, which the Bills were going into this year, I don't think they are right now. We have a lot of time left to play football. I know what the Vegas, people are saying, prognostications, blah, 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 still the team to beat it. I get all that. But as far as the here and now goes, I'm leaving out betting. I'm leaving out prognostications. I'm leaving out gambling. I'm gambling on the Bills. I'm leaving out, analytics. I'm leaving out everything. What I'm looking at is the football game and the way the football team is playing right now, and it's atrocious. I mean, if you're a Super Bowl contender going into this year, Chiefs, Bills, Green Bay, Tampa, you cannot lose to certain teams. You can't lose to the Lions. You can't lose to the Jets. You can't lose to the Jags. You can't lose, to the Dolphins. And the Bills came out of the bye week, and I thought that they were really going to take off. Because I said to myself, you know what? They outplayed the Tennessee Titans and lost. Okay, things happen. Football, right? Your left tackle, who's regressed a little bit the last few weeks, right, in this season overall since he had corona. I don't think that has anything to do with it. But Deion Dawkins got blown up. Josh Allen slipped. You went for it on a fourth down and goal. A fourth and short, down near the goal line. And you didn't get it. Oh, well, that's sports. You lose, you move on. You had a bye week, and you were still in decent shape at 5-2, or at 4-2, pardon me. And then you come out and literally you're tied 3-3 with the Dolphins at the half. And you finally get it going offensively, win 26-11, and then you lose to Jacksonville. This was a horrific loss for the Buffalo Bills. I'm not panicking. I'm not saying the season is over. I'm not saying any of that stuff. But this was as bad a loss as you could get. And didn't it feel a little bit, right? Didn't it feel a little bit like a drought game? Didn't it feel a little bit about, didn't it feel like a little bit of the Tyrod Taylor era, Nathan Peterman, right? Didn't it feel a little bit like J.P. Losman? Didn't it kind of feel like that time, Trent Edwards, right? And you just shake your head at what happened. I mean, honest to God, I couldn't believe what was going on in front of my eyes. I was so disgusted by this game. It was so bad, so ugly. And the Bills, for 2 weeks now in a row, and I'm assuming that the Jets are going to try to do this defensively, as are many, many other teams, but this cover two safety deep thing that's taking away the big play and is forcing the Bills to go underneath and forced to run the football here and there, which they can't do. More on that in a minute. It's caused the Bills to have a lot of issues on offense. And I don't understand why. Because here's the thing. They have guys who are really good over the middle. Diggs, Davis. Where's Davis been, by the way? Gabe Davis. He's been nowhere to be found. Cole Beasley, arguably the best slot receiver in the NFL. Have Emmanuel Sanders, who's a deep threat, but he can also go across the middle, maybe for 7 to 9 to 10 yards. I've said since the beginning of this season, and I've said it going back probably halfway through last season, that when the Bills get into their 11 personnel, right, they're 5 linemen, they're 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a quarterback, and a running back. And by the way, Tommy Sweeney in there now, they really need Dawson Knox in there because he's a better blocker, he's a better pass catcher, better red zone target, all that sort of stuff. And the red zone was awful, by the way, and I'm going to get to that in a minute as well. The point is, when they go 11 personnel, they can throw the ball. I feel like quick releases and like those slants are right there every single drive for the Bills. Not every play, but every drive. And if you watch all the games like I do, you probably are agreeing with me. You're bobbleheading right now as I'm talking. Because Stephon Diggs is one of the best players in the NFL. But it takes the Bills like over a half to target him consistently. Not 3 or 4 in the first half. I'm talking about the first drive of the game. Go to Diggs 3 or 4 times in that drive only. Alone, minimum. Keep going back to the well. Throw the ball to your best friggin' player. And the Bills' red zone is a disaster. It's a disaster. There's no other way to say it. They could have taken a real stranglehold of the game early. I mean, late in the first half, Bills went right downfield in response to the 3-0 field goal lead by Jacksonville, which, by the way, the Bills got the Jaguars into a 3rd and 16, which they fell 12 yards short of converting, thanks to a pass from Lawrence to Chenault. The punting unit was already on the field, but hey, guess what? Trey White baited into a personal foul penalty. That was the start of a long trail of awful shit for the Bills. First down Jaguars, 4 minutes later, Jacksonville kicks a field goal 3-0. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Get off the field. Don't give that up. And then the Bills come down and they're in the red zone. They're at the 3-yard line. You said to yourself, okay, like the offense is going to break out this game, right? That's what I thought. I was like, oh my God, here they come. And then they can't run the ball. Ever. Tried to run Zach Moss on first down, blown up for a 3-yard loss. Bills went nowhere after that. Another red zone failure. And they get a field goal from Tyler Bass. Like, can't have that stuff. We've said for a long time when you play the Titans, when you play the Chiefs, like you need touchdowns to beat them and this and that. Well, apparently you need touchdowns to beat the friggin' Jaguars too. If they had scored that one touchdown, that moment, it would have set the tone. I think the Bills would have won the game. I think they would have set the tone. I think it would have forced Lawrence into some uncomfortable situations. Can we also talk about how, I get that the Bills' offensive line will be a talking point here shortly. And I get that the Bills' O-line was injured. But, Jacksonville was down guys up front, and they were down their starting running back in James Robinson. So I ain't going to use the injury thing here. And then the mistakes just kept piling up and piling up. I mean, look at the second quarter. Deion Dawkins had the personal foul penalty, right? 3rd and 31, sack of Josh Allen, right? And then he had to scramble for 22 yards to even get the field goal. And that was it. The Bills didn't score the rest of the game. And then all the mistakes, man. All the mistakes. Sean McDermott was awful in this game again. And I've lost a lot of faith in the Bills right now. Again, I'm not saying that the season's over. I'm not saying that I'm giving up. I'm not panicking. But I do think that the season is pretty close down the line this coming week against the Jets. You can't lose that game, right? I mean, holy cow. You got to win that game. Get back in the win column. But Sean McDermott now for 2 weeks in a row has had bad days coaching. I mean, really bad days. He hasn't really had a great year coaching, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of this has to do with his, and let me just get to what he did first. In the second quarter, late, I don't understand why when the Jags were flagged for holding, why you didn't put him in a 3rd and 15 makes no sense. Jaguars got nailed for holding after an incompletion from Lawrence. 3rd and 5 turns into 3rd and 15. Instead, McDermott declines the penalty, brings up 4th down on a 55-yard field goal attempt. Matthew Wright nails it to tie it at 6-6. Why would you decline that? If I'm the Bills, I want to have a really, really long 3rd down. Make them, have to throw the ball to get anywhere down the field, right? And try to convert a 3rd down. I'm taking my chances on that. Why would you even give them an opportunity, albeit a long one? Why would you even give them an opportunity to kick a field goal? It's free points, and the Jaguars converted. That was really ridiculous. The Bills, the faith in this team right now, for me, it's not very high, and it goes in layers and layers and layers. The penalties and the mistakes, a lot of that comes down to just undisciplined bullcrap. A lot of it comes back to the coaching staff. The offense right now can't get out of its own way, and I blame to a degree, and Josh Allen does this every time they lose. He gets up on the mic and says, it starts with me, okay, Josh, we get it. You don't have to keep, okay? He had some awful, awful mistakes. I mean, Josh Allen, now, yeah, do you want him to go out there and try to, when you're getting nothing going offensively, when your line is horrific, do you want Josh Allen out there to try and make some plays? Sure. There were a couple of plays in the game where he actually ran away from the pocket and threw and created his own time because he was under such duress. Josh Allen scrambling for 22 yards got them a field goal. On that 3rd and 31 play I was mentioning. So, yeah, you want Allen out there being Josh Allen to a degree, but when he is literally getting all gobbled up, you don't want to see Josh Allen taking ridiculous sacks and throwing the ball horrendously into the other team's arms. I mean, think about this. Late in the 3rd quarter, how about Allen? He completed that 22-yard pass to Sanders. It was an unbelievable pass. 3rd and 22 for 22. But then Cody Ford put the Bills back into a behind-the-stick situation with a holding penalty, right? Then 3rd and 12 comes up. Allen threw an awful, awful pass, one of the worst in his career. He was in the process of getting sacked. This is exactly the stuff I'm talking about. And he tried to play the hero ball, and he tossed it right to the other Josh Allen for a pick, his 2nd of the game. You cannot do that. You cannot give away possessions. You've got to go down there, play the field. It's 6-6, punt the ball away. It's in the 3rd quarter late. You got a lot of time left to go. This is clearly a field goal battle. You're playing like shit. Jacksonville is one of the worst teams in football, but still play the percentages and try to kick it down and let your defense do something, which I think many of us thought that the defense was going to do something at some point. I don't know when, but I think that we all kind of thought, hey, this team, the defense is getting after it too. They're putting pressure. I mean, the Bills only allowed, I think, in the second half, I think it was only 82 yards to the Jaguars. I think that was the number that I read. And I just think, that was an awful play by Allen. The mistakes continued. The penalties continued. I mean, look at the 4th quarter with 10 minutes or so to go. Bills had 4th and 2 at the Jags 43, and we're going for the 1st down. And then Ike Butker gets nailed with a false start. Come on, man. And McDermott punted after that. Another scoring chance wasted. 4th quarter late. 3rd and 2 on the Jags 37. Horrible read option decision by Josh Allen. He kept the ball, didn't hand it to Singletary, and he fumbled when he was hit by Smoot. And then Josh Allen, the other one, of course, recovers, right? It was a comedy of errors. 4th quarter, late, even just still with a chance to tie the game. 3rd and 7, Jags 37. They were in Bass's range for a tying field goal. Allen took a sack. Offensive line got blown up. Smoot tackled him for a 9-yard loss. And then he's flushed out of the pocket and running for his life on the 4th and long, 4th and 16. And he throws incomplete to end the game. What is going on? The penalties, the mistakes, the offense right now, Josh Allen is playing, I would say, like C to B minus football. The running game is an F, basically, week in, week out. But all of it does, for me, come back to the offensive line. Because if you look at the stats, if you look at the numbers for Allen under a lot less duress and, with the clean pocket, it's very similar to a lot of other quarterbacks. There's never been a quarterback who's been great when he's got defenders draped all over him. Every Hall of Fame quarterback has gone, I'm not saying Allen's going to the Hall of Fame, but every Hall of Fame quarterback, every serviceable quarterback, they've had some pretty solid protection. Troy Aikman's in the Hall of Fame. Troy Aikman had the best offensive line in the history of football. Those 90s Cowboys teams with Larry Allen and company. Josh Allen has nothing right now. Spencer Brown, you may say that the offensive line and the season, really up front, it boils down to him because he's got to get back. If he and Feliciano are in there, I think this is a much different look, right? But they're both hurt. And, if you have Spencer Brown on the right side and then you've got, obviously, Feliciano in there, and Darrell Williams you can put back inside, you can go Deion Dawkins on the left tackle side, Feliciano left guard, right guard is Darrell Williams, and then right tackle is Spencer Brown. But Brown is out, Feliciano's out, so Butker's in. Cody Ford, so far, looks like a bust for Brandon Beane. Just a couple of drafts ago, they traded up to get this guy, and he looks like he's a total bust, right? And so, you have to put Darrell Williams in at right tackle, and he's not as good on the outside. And then you got to play around with who plays at the guard positions in Cody Ford and Butker. And then you have Deion Dawkins on the left side, who's also having a horrific day, who is supposed to be your best offensive lineman. Mitch Morse up front as a center has not overwhelmed anyone this year either. So I would tell you that Spencer Brown and John Feliciano, their health is the key to this offensive line. And Feliciano isn't playing again this week, right? I mean, probably. He's on IR. I would be shocked if he came back. Spencer Brown right now looks to be questionable. I don't know as if he's even going to practice until Wednesday or Thursday this week. What does that mean for him? But a lot of the problems come back to the offensive line. There's no question about that. The defense was fantastic for the most part in this game across the board. I mean, they made life really difficult for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence only had 118 yards passing. C.J. Beathard got in the game and actually completed his 2 passes, which is embarrassing if you're the Bills defense, but it didn't win them the game, Jacksonville. The Jaguars had 139 yards of passing and 27 yards rushing. I mean, do the math on that. In the NFL today, 159, 166. They had 166 yards on offense. I mean, come on. You can't blame the Bills defense for a damn thing in this game, right? Levi Wallace was really good. Saran Neal came in for Taron Johnson, who had a concussion. He got off to a little bit of a rocky start, got exposed, and then he really, really clamped down and played well in coverage and was a tackle machine, right? Another really, really strong game for Tremaine Edmonds. Tre'Davious White, albeit, a tough struggle with the penalties and all the rest. He had a half a sack. I thought Harrison Phillips and Latulele were fine, and Poyer was good, and Milano at times was all over the field. I thought he could have done a little bit more. Mario Addison had a sack in this game. Jerry Hughes continued to push. So the defense did their thing. They didn't allow a touchdown to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I know the Jaguars are one of the worst teams in offenses in the NFL, but the Bills went out and did their job against a terrible team. If the defense holds a team to 6 points with this freaking offense, even with the injuries, even with Spencer Brown and Feliciano out, even with Cole Beasley banged up and in the third quarter with the rib problem had to go out, this team should have still beaten the Jacksonville Jaguars. They should be able to lose 3-4 players, 5 players, and still beat the Jaguars when your defense allows only 6 points. You still have Allen. You still have Diggs. You still have your coaching staff. You still have quick release opportunities, right? What the hell is going on? And, oh, by the way, there were a lot of plays on third down. The Jacksonville offense, Leslie Frazier backed up on a lot of plays on second and third down with Jacksonville. and just kind of settled into man-to-man. And, there was some soft zone that was implemented. I'm not a fan of that. Like, I've watched a ton, obviously, of the NFL this year again. But, like, rookie quarterbacks, all defenses are just coming after them and saying, yo, welcome to the NFL, man. Show me that you can beat me. The Bills should have done that with Trevor Lawrence. They should have been blitzing the living piss out of this guy. Over and over and over again. One blitz after another after another. That's all there is to it. They should have been sending the house on the majority of these plays. Because the Jaguars did not have James Robinson for the ground attack. They had Carlos Hyde, who's an inferior running back compared to Robinson and, frankly, most people in the NFL. He has 67 yards, but he carried it 21 times. He only averaged 3.2 yards a carry. I mean, give me a break. This team should have been going nuts on Trevor Lawrence. They should have been bringing multiple people in blitz formations. They should have been sending Edmonds and Milano to the house almost every down until Lawrence could show that he could beat you. Same thing with the safeties. Bring them up. Poyer, Hyde, get him up there. Taron Johnson before he went down, get him up there. Even without Spencer Brown, Feliciano, Cole Beasley for a good chunk of the second half, Taron Johnson, this team still should beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Under no circumstance, when you are a top 5 team in the NFL going into a season, you should not in any way, shape, or form lose to the Jaguars. My final thought as I wrap up is when you look at Brandon Beane, and I'm not going to get caught up in 1 week, the whole world is either going to open up or it's going to cave, Monday morning quarterbacking, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to get into all of that right now or ever because I hate that, right? Like week 1 happened, it was overreaction. Even the Bills losing to the Steelers, and it was, oh boy, oh, this team isn't as good as week 1. Packers got stoned, just stymied by the Saints in week 1. Packers came back and won 7 in a row, right? Like the Patriots lost to the Dolphins in week 1. Look at where both teams are right now. Each week, there's the highs and the lows and the roller coaster, the ups and downs, etc. I'm not going to get into, well, the Bills losing to the Jaguars means this for the entire season. I'm not going to do that. And, while I've lost some faith in the team and in McDermott, and the Jaguars, multiple players even said that the Bills, if you looked over, it looked like the Bills didn't have any energy. They just weren't ready to play. Well, when the hell are you going to be ready to play? You're halfway through the season. You had your friggin' bye week. I mean, it almost looks like the Bills went on a bender in their bye week, and they're literally still recovering from it. Because that's how they looked against Miami for 2.5, 3 quarters. That's how they looked the entire game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've lost quite a bit of faith in this team across the board. That doesn't mean that I don't, think that they can fix this thing. That doesn't mean that I think that they're done. It just means that for the here and now, right now, I just feel really, really about this team. And they have 5 wins. And guess what? The AFC is really muddled. This loss really, really, really hurts in more ways than one. Not only does it hurt because, hey, you have the same amount of wins as the Patriots in the AFC East, a division you're supposed to win by at least 2 or 3 games. You now have one less win than the Ravens. The Titans are now 2 games ahead of you, and they have the tiebreaker. You face a Colts team that's 4-5. They come into Buffalo in a couple of weeks. You have the same amount of wins as the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Chargers, right? You have the same exact amount of wins as the Browns and the Steelers and the Bengals. So this is not good. This is what happens when you lose a game like this. It sets you back big time. And the Bills have got to figure it out. Brandon Beane, I think it's safe to say, look, again, I'm not saying that everything is caved in and over and all that, but I think it's safe to say that Brandon Beane had missed on Cody Ford, right? He's missed on some guys now. I mean, he's missed on, so far, Moss and Singletary. I mean, he's missed on a lot of guys that aren't talked about. And oh, by the way, can we talk a little bit about the situation with Brandon Beane last year? And I was a fan of this going into this year. but he wanted to bring the band back this year, right? He wanted to bring them all back. Darrell Williams coming out party, gave him a fat contract, right? I got to have Feliciano back, got him at below average value for the market. Well, guess what? John Feliciano, he's really, really good. He's the most versatile lineman the Bills have. He's probably the best lineman because of that versatility. But guess what? Because he can play guard and center, but he's always hurt. He's always freaking hurt, right? Cody Ford, total disaster and a bust. There were guys available in the offseason. The Kansas City Chiefs went out and traded. They got Orlando Brown. They signed Joe Thuney. That's a team that's been up against the cap for a couple of years now because of the Mahomes contract, and Brett Veach has figured it out. Brandon Beane's still a very, very good GM. He's a shark. I get it. But really, really good GMs still aren't perfect. They're still going to miss. And I think he's missed in a lot more areas than people are talking about right now. And he wanted to bring the band back together, right? Like Milano's already been hurt this year. He wanted to bring him back. He wanted to bring back a lot of guys. And again, like I said, I was all for it. But you're looking at a 5-3 team right now where a lot of this band that's back together is either not performing up to their capability. They're really severely underperforming, and or they're injured. And you just can't have this. You can't have a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Bills lose to Jacksonville 9-6. They'll play the Jets this Sunday. Thanks for listening to Bills Brawl. I'm Mike Lindsley. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.